Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Mythgard in Middle-earth. I'm Corey Olson, the Tolkien Professor, here with you again as always. And I'm joined by my friend Grifflet, who appears to be completely transfixed, staring into Kheled Zaram. Yes, I understand, Grifflet. It's okay, but we need to sort of move on now. But here he is, standing not quite on the spot where Durin first looked upon Miramir, but he's just up the road a little bit from there. There are goblins down there, there are orcs down there, so he decided to look into Kheled Zaram down here, which I expect, by the way, is closer to where Gimli looked into Kheled Zaram, as he would have come down the stairs there, and he turned aside fairly quickly to look into Miramir, because he couldn't not do that, right? And Frodo and Sam went with him. Now, I believe, if I recall correctly, and you guys who are here with me live will recall that we'll be able to answer for it. Didn't I seem to remember the last time I was here, I could see the stars reflected in Miramir, right? I assume that the reason I can't now is because I've done so much tinkering with my graphics settings in order to try to prevent my own lag, concerning which more later, that I've turned off whatever setting it is that would activate the stars in Miramir. But that's a thing that happens, right? That still happens? I would love to see the stars in Miramir again. I got to figure out what setting I need to change back to do that, but anyway, it's that was one of the first time I came through here. That was one of the details that really that I just like. It was another one of those things that I immediately went looking for. Right there, whenever I come to a new place in LOTRO, it's one of the first, there's always some association from the books that I have, some detail that they mention or something, that always really struck my imagination while reading the books, that I immediately go and see, like, did they remember? Did they put it in? And that was one of the things here. When I first came out and saw Kheled Zaram, I was like, hey, can you see the stars in Kheled Zaram, even in the middle of the day? And it turned out, yes, you could. Yeah, so okay, so Druid's Fire. So here I'm thinking I can actually handle that. So I think I got to the bottom of my lag issue, which was funny, actually. Those of you who weren't with me, so last Saturday I did my Wigan stream, and about like 2 hours into the stream, it just all of a sudden this like curtain of lag descended, and I suddenly like could barely move or do anything. But what I noticed at that point was that it wasn't just lag in the game. People were making a bunch of sort of in-game suggestions of, graphic settings I could change and stuff to make it go faster. But that wasn't it. It was like my entire computer was running really slowly, like my, like my web browser and all basic things were going really slowly too. So it turns out there are sort of two things. My battery is not great, but that wasn't actually the problem. The problem, it turns out, was the adapter. Somehow, and I have no idea when or how this happened, it is a complete mystery to me, I had the wrong adapter. My adapter must have gotten swapped with somebody else's adapter at some point. It was a 45 watt adapter when I need a 60 watt adapter. So that's why it was using the battery when even though it was plugged in. And so why, when I was doing something like, say, streaming LOTRO online, the power cord couldn't keep up with it. So it was slowly draining my battery down. I just hadn't noticed it before. This leads me to believe, by the way, that that's why I was having so much lag at the end of my Grifflet marathon as well, I bet. It never even occurred to me to look at the battery because it's plugged in, right? So I never even thought of it. I just happened to notice it on Saturday. Anyway, but I fixed it. I got a new adapter. Everything is working really well now. So I don't know that this means like I'm never gonna have lag in Rivendell again. But anyway, this should make a pretty big difference, I think. Which means I might change some of my graphic settings back up again, because I don't want to miss out. Like, I remember the day I had a bunch of my graphic settings stripped down a while back for streaming purposes, but then I realized I wasn't seeing half the detail on the tapestries, and I'm like, that's not okay. So I changed it. Anyway, I'm gonna change some of it back now, I reckon. But anyhow, okay. let's carry on. So Grifflet is here in the Nanduhirion, and I was trying last time to sort of figure out where the battle was. I have to say it's one. Well, again, I won't go so far as to say it's like a detail in the, because it's not a thing that's mentioned in the book, right? There's nothing explicitly mentioned in the story about, you know, any kind of like memorial or remnant or anything of the Battle of Nanduhirion. But it's such a big moment. I'm a little surprised that I haven't found anything, you know? I would think there would be some memory of the Battle of Azanulbazar here, right? Not necessarily something as like overt or clumsy as like, and here is the burned glade, still burned out, where they burned the bodies of the dwarves or something like that, right? I mean, that would be cool, but I wouldn't really expect necessarily LOTRO to do that, because of course, if you think about it, I mean, that wouldn't be, right? I mean, it was years ago, many years ago. Like, I don't remember exactly, but you gotta think it's at least, I mean, well, goodness, it's been 77 years. At the time of the Lord of the Rings, it's been 77 years since The Hobbit happened, right? So that's a long time. And then the Battle of Nanduhirion, the Battle of Azanulbazar, was well before that. So, yeah, I mean, it's been like, what, I don't know, maybe 150-ish years or something like that, maybe more, since the Battle of Nanduhirion. So it's not like there would actually be a burned glade or anything like that, not to mention the fact that the dwarves haven't had control of this region. It's been in the hands of the orcs, even though it's on the borders or near the borders of Lothlorien. So, you know, like, there probably wouldn't be. And if the dwarves had, like, erected something, the orcs probably would have torn it down, like, I don't know, gigantic obelisks or something like that. Concerning which, more later. But more later. But anyhow, so yeah, I find it, like, perfectly defensible. I'm not saying I consider it like an oversight or something that they haven't put anything, but I still miss it. I still wish that there were something. And if you guys know of anything that I've overlooked in this valley, I've looked, but I haven't seen anything that seems to recall or allude to the Battle of Azanulbazar, which I find kind of a shame. But anyway, so Grifflet is gonna spend some time here in Azanulbazar because, again, as I mentioned before, he needs to level up a bit. He's now pretty seriously under level for this area. So rather than just kind of narrow-mindedly pursuing the epic quest, I'm gonna do some side quests here. Let Grifflet beef himself up here on the outskirts of Lothlorien because he's never seen Lothlorien before. So I was going to go back into Moria and do some more side quests in Moria, but then I was like, hey, you know, I mean, I got to the Dimrill Dale. Why not go back to the Dimrill Dale and have a look around there? I've seen Moria, and I'm going to get to come back to Moria. So in the end, I decided to come out here to the Dimrill Dale, and we'll do some lore talk here today. And I hope you guys have some more questions. I got some questions here that I can answer. Yeah, anyway, so that's what we're going to do today. Grifflet's going to explore the Nanduhirion. And so I reckon this dude, right, pretty prominently placed, right? You come down the hill, and lo and behold, there's the guy, right? So I figure I should talk to him first. Okay, I talked to the stable master first, because that's always the first thing that you do, right? But, all right. Okay. So, by the way, some of you, some people have made references to pronunciation. You know how to pronounce Elvish names? Well, at least Sindarin names. There are a couple sort of things that you should know. I'm not an expert by any stretch in Elvish pronunciation, and there are lots of people who correct me all the time. But like when you're confronted with something like this, I figure we might as well talk about that, right? You know how to proceed. Well, there are one general rule of pronunciation. Oh, sorry about that. I seem to have some notifications still on. Let me get rid of that so we don't get noises there. one of the general, and it's not a rule so much as a trend, right? That Tolkien said that Elvish names tend to have the stress on the penultimate syllable, right? So the Ron here in his name is, so that's the first thing, right? That you know where the stress should fall. So it's not Merethrandir, it's Merethrandir. Right. The other thing is the DH is one of those consonantal combinations that's sort of different in Sindarin, and the DH is the voiced. It's like the voiced TH, like these clothes, right? The sound is the DH, right? So Merethrandir would be how this guy is pronounced. So remember, when in doubt, stress on the second to last syllable. And then there's to know how to do the couple consonantal combinations and the vowel combinations. Now Tolkien, remember that when Tolkien is representing a word like this, this isn't a Tolkien name, but it's of course based on Tolkien's languages. When Tolkien is using his languages to represent a name like this, that is to say in Latin letters, right, in our regular alphabet, he's translating, right? That's not what the Elvish name would really be. That's not what it would be in Sindarin, right? Because they have their own alphabet. So when he was composing Elvish names, he was actually thinking in terms of his own alphabet. So he actually was sort of translating. Anytime he wrote it in English, he was actually translating. And yes, I really do believe that Tolkien thought in his own alphabet, with his own Elvish languages. He spent as much time working on the new scripts and the new alphabets as he did working on the language. It wasn't in any way an afterthought. And you can see in his Elvish, when he's working on his languages, he does a lot in those alphabets and wrote quite a bit in them. So whenever you're seeing an Elvish word in English letters, you're seeing a translation, which means, so sometimes people will say, okay, like, all right, so I see the pronunciation guide, in the back. There's a fairly lengthy pronunciation guide in the appendix of the of the Return of the King, and it's also there in the Silmarillion as well. Christopher Tolkien included it in the Silmarillion. And some people will say, well, okay, so that's how you pronounce Elvish names, right? But how do I know how to pronounce other names? No, that's how to pronounce all names, actually, because again, any English representation of, and again, any Latin alphabet representation of these names is a translation, right? And so when Tolkien is doing that, he wants you to be able to pronounce it. Tolkien the sound of these names was super important to him, right? So one of the things that kind of annoys me when I'm reading other modern fantasy, you ever read one of those fantasy novels where everybody has like a completely unpronounceable name with like 2 apostrophes and no vowels, right? You know the kind of fantasy novel I'm talking about. I'm sure you've all had this experience. That's not Tolkien, right? Mostly again because he was one of his primary focus whenever he was, either whether he was inventing words or whether he was inventing sort of grammatical and syntactic constructs or whether he was inventing names, the sound of it was super important to him. It was one of the most important things. He actually believed. We just talked about this a good deal, actually. Dr. Dimitri Fimi from Wales gave an awesome lecture on this, on Tolkien and phonetic symbolism, his ideas about phonetic symbolism, that there are some sounds that are just like intrinsically connected to certain meanings, and that he was sort of trying to find that in his own in his own language. It's really, really neat. You go to our YouTube channel, you can find recordings of Dr. Fimi's lecture. It was public part of the seminar on Secret Vice, the new book that Dr. Fimi and Dr. Higgins published. Anyway, so the point is that he wants you. Not only does he want you to say the names aloud and the Elvish aloud, he wants you to be able to do it properly in all the names, not just the names of elves. So the pronunciation, so the representation of all these different names from all these different languages in English letters, right, in the Latin alphabet, and the pronunciation guide, it's designed to be sort of standard, right? Like they're representing the Sindarin sounds that make up an Elvish name, in letters, in like this same kind of code, right? So that you can pronounce it all. So it's okay to use the pronunciation guide to pronounce any Tolkien word, not just an Elvish name. Because again, he wants you to be able to pronounce it and to be able to get it right. That you know, and again, we've all had that experience where you have like 3 people together who really love a particular fantasy novel and they all pronounce the protagonist's name completely differently, right? I'm not saying that doesn't happen with Tolkien, but if it does happen with Tolkien, there are some people who are wrong and others who are right. That is, he was pretty clear about it, and there was definitely a pronunciation that he had in mind that he wanted people to use. So Mereithrandir. This is why I do try to get the pronunciations correct, and it's fun. It's fun to learn how to pronounce Anglo-Saxon words correctly and how to pronounce Elvish words correctly. It's part of the fun. And again, I don't always do it. And when I don't do it, it's mostly because I'm still making mistakes that I've been making since I was a kid and I can't stop. There's some that I used to make, like for instance, the AE vowel combination is pronounced like I. So the eldest son of Feanor in the Silmarillion, for instance, is Maedhros. I pronounced his name Maedhros throughout my childhood. I pronounced the AE combination as A, until, oh goodness, I don't even know when I finally figured out I was pronouncing that wrong. College, maybe. Anyways, I'd been reading it for years and years and years and mispronouncing it. Maedhros I was able to switch relatively early. Maeglin, the elf who betrays Gondolin, was much harder. I still will sometimes slip and say Maeglin, which is how I always pronounced that. But anyway, so it's fun. Isildur is another one. Isildur, the son of Elendil, the Tall, right? King of, the number 2 in the line of the kings of Gondor. Cut the ring from Sauron's hand. For whatever reason, when I was younger, I put the stress on the first syllable and pronounced it Isildur. I don't know exactly why, but I did. Actually, I think that one is kind of defensible because Isil or Ithil, the moon, right, which seems to be like involved in his name, is pronounced Isil, right? So, not Isil. Anyway, but whatever. It was wrong, and I still do that all the time. Anyway, so here I've spent all this time talking, and I haven't even gotten the first quest, so Grifflet not making fabulous progress so far in the Nanduhirion. But I don't know why Mereithrandir's name launched me into this, but I think it's fun, and I'll try to keep in mind as we meet other elves today, as we're going to be meeting other elves. I'll try to be mindful about the pronunciation. We can do a little some Elvish pronunciation clinic as we go through. But the DH is one of my favorites. The DH, and again, that's a consonantal combination. That's one sound, Mereithrandir. And that DH sound. By the way, Tolkien actually originally had the DH in the middle of Galadriel's name. She was Galadriel originally. But he changed it because he decided that the DH in the middle there looked too uncouth for one of his main characters. He thought that readers would have a really hard time with it. By uncouth, he meant just weird to English reading people, right? That they were just going to struggle with that. So he simplified it to the DR because like DHR, like that's not a consonantal combination that happens in English, right? So he thought people would really stumble over it, and he didn't want people stumbling over Galadriel's name. So he changed it to Galadriel with a D. You'll notice, of course, the Galathrim, right? Still have that combination. Like that's okay. He kind of kept that in because it was more minor, but he didn't want to put it smack in the middle of Galadriel's name because that would be a much bigger deal rather. But anyway, so I really love that consonantal combination, and the rest of them I think is pretty simple. The IR, of course, I'm saying it's not Mithrandir. Mithrandir, yeah, of course, that's somebody else. It's not Mereithrandir. The I is pronounced like E. Mereithrandir. But of course, you'll notice the similarity between his name and the name of Gandalf, of course, Mithrandir, his Sindarin name. Okay, yeah, good, exactly. Erocheb in the chat here is adding the backstory, which I wasn't going to get into, but you're right. that of course the change in the name, right, changes the meaning. Exactly. Good, excellent. We're gonna say, wait, you guys are doing great. Old Badgerbrock in the chat says that the dropping the H from Galadriel's name changes her name from the Lady of the Trees to the Lady of Light, which is right. And Erocheb says, and then he made up a story about how Galadriel with the DH, right, was a mistake by the elves who thought it had Galav, which is tree. That's why the Galathrim are the people of the trees, right? Rather than Galad, radiance. Exactly, Erocheb. Yeah, this is what Tolkien always did, right? He never just changed anything silently, even things that hadn't actually been, right? So like he had thought of doing it this way, and then he decided to do a different way, and then of course he makes a story out of it. Anytime something has to be changed or redrafted or something like that, it becomes a story. Right. Any correction that he made, he always did this. Any change or correction that he made to the story becomes itself a story. Right. So say he misspelled a word. Not that he would exactly misspell a word, but say he didn't spell a word. This actually often happened where he would spell a word in a particular way and the publishers would want to change it into a different way. Right. So if there were some kind of a really minor change like that, like the word doesn't even change, but it's like an English word and the spelling of the English word changes, he would invent a story about that. It would be like, so there's discrepancies in the manuscripts where you can clearly see the dialectical differences among scribes, and there are certain giveaways, where you can see, and from this we can begin to draw some theories about like the manuscript provenance of this story as it spread over time, right? That's exactly the kind of thing that he would do because he was a nerd. But it was really fun. So okay, let's actually talk to Merethrundir rather than only talking about Merethrundir, who's probably been standing here just writhing in discomfort as Grifflet is staring at him eerily and thinking about his name. So let's do this. Hey, Merethrundir.
If you have a moment, I have need of your assistance.
It's funny that you ask if I have a moment, considering I've already been standing in front of you for 15 minutes. So, I've come through the dark of halls of Moria to sunny Nandu Hiriad. Well, it was sunny when I started talking, but the sun seems to have set as I've been discussing orthography and pronunciation. Anyway, my Govanen, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. The eves of Lorien are near, and if you gain the trust of my people, you shall find refuge beyond the Nimrod Dell. Yeah, I heard, in the old days, didn't they used to shoot you dead if you didn't have the reputation with the Galathrim? By the way, I think that's awesome. I wish they still did that. I think it's a shame that's a change. There are a bunch of times when I hear LOTRO players who have been playing for longer than I've only been playing for a couple of years, and but like the old guard, you guys know who you are, from whom I always hear these stories about, like, I remember back in the old days when you used to have to talk to the trainers, right, and all that kind of thing. I always love hearing those stories. Usually when I hear those stories, I'm like, okay, actually, that kind of sounds like an improvement. I'm kind of glad we don't have to do that anymore. But I have to say, I still wish that the Elvish guards shot you dead if you tried to go into Lothlorien before you had achieved reputation with the Galathrim. That's kind of cool. That's a plot feature, right? That's a story-old thing. So I kind of wish that would happen. But anyway, okay. Let's see. So, very dangerous time. Sorry, Merethrundir. Now I'm not even listening to you. Word of your ventures has reached my ears. Oh, did you watch the marathon? That was great. Yeah, I went through the whole long Dark of Moria. It was like the short Dark of Moria. Well, it felt long enough on that day, but we did do it in one day, so that was cool. Anyway, so you bid me what welcome you can as I emerge from the darkness. Again, I emerged before and went back in, came back, but it's all good. Take care. Right. Many evil things have stirred from the dark, and this dale is not safe. Yeah, we drove some of them out, man. Like we've been troubling the evil things down there. But things did not go well recently. The whole Bosi issue and all that. Or was it Bori? Darn it! I'm forgetting the name of the dwarf who got captured. It was Bori, wasn't it? Bori? It was Bori. Bosi's his dad, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm remembering now. By the way, that was really fascinating. Did you hear when I was in my discussion with Maid of Lions, who said that originally that was going to be Bifer and Bofer, right? They changed their names to Bosi and Broen. No, Bosi and Broger, and made them the sons of Bifer and Bofer, but they were going to be Bifer and Bofer themselves originally, which is really cool. And of course, that makes a lot of sense. You think about the way in which they've gone pretty far out of their way to include other characters from the Hobbits, right? We met Dory in the where is it, North Downs, right? Of course, we meet Dwalin. Some people have asked, is there any kind of book logic, any kind of plot basis for like Dwalin to be back out in the Blue Mountains? No, there's not. I mean, the only thing we get is that we know that there were a lot of dwarves who lived out there. Many of them returned to Erebor, of course, after the Reconquest, but it doesn't say that all of them did, and it seems actually kind of likely that not all of them did. So that there would remain dwarves out in the Blue Mountains. Does seem to fit with what we know from the text. It doesn't say, there's nothing that says that that Dwalin himself went out there, but it makes sense. I have no problems with that at all. Actually, you'd think one of the heroes of Erebor, right? Might well take up that kind of leadership position. So yeah, no, it's all good, but no, it doesn't say anything about it in the book. Anyway, so again, we've got, and of course then we met Glóin, which is in the book, right? Because Glóin is there at the Council of Elrond, so we need to have him in the Greater Rivendell area, right, during that, because that's the time period that we're up to, in the game at this point, or at that point anyway, in Volume 1. So yeah, anyway, so Bifer and Bofer originally, and then they changed them. And the reason they changed them was that was happening right around the time that the first Hobbit movie was coming out, or, they was getting ready and everything. And so they didn't want to have these sort of conflicting storylines, and they knew that Peter Jackson was going to be establishing this sort of new identity and new visual association with the dwarves and stuff. And so they decided, I think prudently, right, not to just try to compete with that and create this whole situation where people are kind of going back and forth and being like, that's not what Bifer looks like, or whatever, so Bofer probably in the Peter Jackson context would be the one people would more object to. So that's why they changed their names to Bosi and Broger. I'm sorry, Merith Randir, I'm being so rude. Upon the Nimrodel is a talon belonging to Haldir, a protector of the eaves of Laura Lindorinen. Ah. Laura Lindorinen, of course, is one of the names for it. The wood, the realm, there, what is it? The Valley of Singing Gold, I think is the literal translation of that, something like that. The Valley of Singing Gold. This one is a fairly easy one to parse. Laurelin, right, is the golden, right? We got the gold from there. Laurelin being the name of the tree of gold, of the two trees of Valinor. But there's also Lindor, right? Lindor is sing, right? So you've got the singing gold thing. Anyway, so but of course we hear that name in the only person. There's only one person who says that name in the Lord of the Rings. Trivia question. Does anybody know? From whom do we hear the name Laura Lindorinen in the Lord of the Rings? Where do we get that? Anyway, I'm interested to hear that Merith Randir is calling it that. He will offer you refuge. Good. God, you got it. Both Fairvenin and Rowan of Gondor. Treebeard. Yeah, Treebeard is the one who calls it Laura Lindorinen. Of course, it's longer, so he remembers the longer name, obviously. Lothlorien means the dream flower, he says. So that's Treebeard's translation of it. And it's interesting. I love his comment when he says, well, maybe so. Maybe it's shrinking rather than growing, right? So that's sort of Treebeard's comment on the fading of the elves and the representation, the apt representation of that fading linguistically, right? In the name, that it's fitting that the name should get shorter over time. By the time the wood becomes monosyllabic, it'll be time to hit the havens, right? Anyway, okay. You will offer me refuge. That's very kind, even after I've taken so long to read your quest text. The way is hidden. Seek him beyond Echad Endestel, and wet your feet in the Nimra Dell near the bridge that is broken. Okay, yeah, I hear that's very refreshing. South of that bridge upon the shore is a great malorn tree. Upon that tree you shall find Haldir. He will trust you if he knows you have come with my leave. Okay. Excellent. I look forward to speaking to Haldir at his Talon. And in fact, I believe I have an epic quest to speak to Haldir at his Talon, so I'll totally do that. Okay. All right. All right. I see Sam Burke was just tra-la-la-la-laying over there. It's not exactly a lore question, but it's almost like a provocation, right? Okay, so now this is kind of cool. Merithrandir, the elf of Lothlorien, just welcomed me. The stable master, whom I met first, of course, is an elf. The guards of the camp are dwarves. Why are these elves here? This dwarf is asking. See, that's interesting. We have, what did you say? We have supplies enough. Why are these elves here? It was Durin's folk that awakened the terror under the mountains, says the elf forge master. Yeah. Okay. Quiz time. Now, GD is not a consonantal combination. That's just two separate. That's just two different consonants. Now, I would pronounce this Beleg Daniel. It's hard. You might say, well, now hang on a second. That's the third to the last syllable. If EL is two syllables, but like that doesn't exactly count. So, I would definitely pronounce this Beleg Daniel. You wouldn't say Beleg Daniel. The IEL is that's an ending. So I would definitely put the stress on Don there, Beleg Daniel. Never Dan, the eh sound, that's an Americanism, right? That's not how it's pronounced. Beleg Daniel. Okay, Beleg Daniel. So you're a little uncertain about these dwarves, right? Because they, what was it that you just said? Do I get your, no, I don't. Your text doesn't actually show up on my screen. Oh yeah, about them waking Durin's Bane, right? So you still recall this, and of course, in saying that, she, as one of the elves of Lothlorien here on the fringes, is basically sort of speaking the part that Celeborn spoke, right? The distrust that Celeborn retained, blaming the dwarves for stirring up the evil under the mountain, which, you know, of course, he still remembers, and Beleg Daniel over there probably still remembers. So anyway, yeah. Okay, so here again, second to last syllable, Firatharu. Now, you know that the TH is soft, right? It's not Firatharu, right? Because if it were a the sound, it would be a DH, right? So the TH is always unvoiced in Elvish. Firatharu. Firatharu. That's a really interesting name. And the Aru ending is a little bit unusual. Dagfari. Okay. The dwarves should never have returned here. So we have a camp full of mixed elves and dwarves, neither one of whom is very happy to see the other. See now Otam's name here. Usually when Tolkien put that accent above the letters, right? You got the accent above the O. Normally that means it's generally a guide for pronunciation, right? So he wants to make sure, because again, he wants to make sure you pronounce it properly. The accent, it means that vowel is long, and it usually means that the stress is on that syllable. So this is not Otam, this is Otam. Clearly, that's what the accent is designed to show you. That it's you're supposed to emphasize that. Hey, Otam.
Might you lend me an ear?
Okay, but I'll need it back. The orcs following from Khazad-dûm have found a powerful ally in the wargs here in the Dale. This is a very bad thing for us, as we cannot match warg riders in combat. They are too fast and too strong. I could get my friend Grifflet with his war steed down here, boy, and he'd teach them a thing or two. If we want to fight with this new menace, we'll have to strike at the wargs, head southeast to Athmadhul. Athmadhul. Say again, this is an Orcish camp, but you still use the pronunciation. So you're ATH, soft, unvoiced, right? And then the DH, right? So Athmadhul. And thin the numbers of the wargs there. Once we have done that, we can begin to think about the riders. Be careful, Grifflet, for the beasts are dangerous, even singly. Return to me when you are through, right? Especially when they're like 4 levels higher. No, only 3 levels higher than me. That's fine. What's there to worry about? Okay, Otam, I'll take care of some wargs.
Is a moment of your time too much to ask?
No, man, you can ask a moment of my time. It's all good. All of these orcs around the Dale concern me. I hear where you're coming from. Were they all still in Khazad-dûm, I would feel better. But out here, they can inflict great damage. You know, I'm not going to say anything, but they could inflict great damage inside, too. I mean, when we were defending the 21st Hall the other day, you know, we would have been happy to have them come out into the Dale, to be perfectly honest with you. They have dug countless new tunnels into the depths from which they can launch attacks nearly anywhere at any time. We can cripple their ability to do that if we control this place. Okay. Yeah. Clearly this is the main exit over here, right? So yeah, we totally want to control the Nanduhirian. And you'd think the elves of Lothlorien would be right on board with that plan, right? Which makes it interesting. That's why I was so fascinated to see, wait, what's your name? Alrekur. Alrekur. Again, the UR is usually pronounced Ur. Usually pronounced Ur. So Alrekur would be the pronunciation of your name, Mr. Dwarf. So anyway, Alrekur, yeah, that's why I thought it was cool that the elves are, so, you know, the other dwarf guard over there was saying, why are these elves here? Well, clearly they're wanting to help guard this because this is a choke point, right? If they can control the orcs here, or at least have scouts here to know, you know, if the orcs issue forth in force from Moria, right? So like y'all should be neighbors. Bosi knows that. That's why Bosi sent me out here to talk to Haldir. We're gonna do some ally things. It'll be like the old days, right? Khazad-dûm and the Elf Kingdom. I know they were friendlier with, you know, Celebrimbor and the guys over there on the other side in Eregion than they were in Lothlorien. But Galadriel was all about, okay, well, she wasn't all about the dwarves. She was about other things too, but she liked the dwarves. She was the one who really was the first, was the one who promoted primarily the friendship between elves and dwarves. She was the one that like brokered the friendship with Khazad-dûm. That's how she knows the dwarf language. Right? Remember, Gimli is all over surprised. You know, when all she does is you know, she talks about Khaled Zaram, and she uses the dwarf names, and he's all smitten right from that point. Because of course she used to I don't know, she used to hang out in Khazad-dûm exactly. That might perhaps be a little bit too much, but anyway, she was friendly with him. She was pro dwarf. Less so her husband, as we see. Okay. All right. Yeah, as old Badger Brock said, Celeborn not so much. All right. Let's see. Sorry. Oh yeah, the dwarves. You're worrying about the orcs, and they've dug countless new tunnels. Oh yeah, that's not good. We've seen the stockade of a great camp to the southwest. You don't know what's going on there, but smoke rises from it. Okay, yeah, we should not... Whatever they're doing, let's not allow it to continue unchecked. I agree. Let's check it. In more than one sense, I bet. Right, Alrekor? Head southwest to Drew Garmath. See, it's really interesting when the DH is the final consonantal vowel. Because, of course, as a single consonant, why not have it at the end of a word, right? Like Garmath there. Drew Garmath. The circumflex over the U, again, that means that's a nice long U there. Drew Garmath. And investigate the camp. Thin out some of the orcs there as well. That will make a second strike go more smoothly. All right. I can defeat me some orcs. All right, what else we got? I got quest rings all over the place. All right. Hafleith.
Come and stay a moment.
Okay. Durin Stone is a treasure of the dwarves. It is in that spot, staring into the mirror, that Durin decided to settle here and build Khazad-dûm. Yeah, he looked into the, what are the lines? He stooped and looked in mirror and saw and saw a crown of stars appear. Yeah. I keep as I'm trying to quote the poem, I keep almost lapsing into the Gilgalad poem. The countless stars of heaven's field were mirrored in his silver shield. I was like, no, wrong dude, wrong star poem. I'm like conflating lines of poems here this morning, but I guess it's afternoon, isn't it? Well, anyway, for some of you, it's morning, doubtless. Okay, it is for me. So you fear for the safety of Durin Stone. The orcs spewing forth from Moria have set up a camp around it, and daily I see several of them working on reducing it to dust. This cannot be allowed to happen. Agreed. Head to Uruk Gashan, southeast of here, and defeat the orc sappers around the camp. Uruk Gashan, probably it should be. Again, stress is very rarely on the last syllable of words. And defeat the orc sappers around the camp. They are the ones with the knowledge to reduce the stone to dust and are the greatest threat to our ancient monument. Okay. By the way, very rarely the stress is very rarely at the end of the words, because Tolkien uses a lot of suffixes, like a lot of the last syllable is very often not like the primary thing about the name, but it's like an ending, right? His languages are inflected, so it's not the main part of the word, and that's why it's usually not stressed. Okay, all right, Dagfari.
Won't you give me even a moment?
The orcs have been cutting down trees in the Dimrald Dale, but it does not appear to be just for campfires. No, they have cut far too many trees for that. I fear they may be up to something more devious. While they are not needed within the depths of Khazad-dûm, orcs are able to construct great weapons of war. Okay, so funny thing about that, Dagfari, that's a misplaced modifier, which is kind of funny, right? While they are not needed within the depths of Khazad-dûm, orcs, right? Okay, although orcs are not needed within the depths of Khazad-dûm, they are able to construct great weapons of war. So they are able to construct great weapons of war despite the fact that the orcs are not needed. And never mind, I'll stop teasing him for his syntax. Presumably it's the great weapons of war that are not needed within the depths of Khazad-dûm. Weapons capable of laying siege to village, town, or city, or forest. I fear that is where all those trees are going. Wait, you do? Okay, so here we are. Which towns and cities were you thinking about? Like Galathon? Seriously? That's where we were? The sea is always hard, by the way. Another rule of Tolkien's languages. Seas are always hard. Always, always, always. There's never a soft sea. Ever. In Tolkien's languages. So every time you see a sea. And by the way, that was hard for me too. I remember the first time I heard somebody call him Celeborn, I laughed at them. I did. I was like in middle school or so at the time. I think I was in 8th or 9th grade. Something like that. And I laughed. Because I was like, no, and it was interesting that I had like the right idea. I was completely wrong, but I had sort of the right idea in that I was paying attention to the sound of words, and I was like, it seemed to me wrong that so many Elvish words and names would begin with such a hard sound. I wanted them to be soft and euphonious, so Celeborn seemed to me much nicer sounding than Celeborn. But there was. So that was just a matter of, I think, a way in which my own taste differed from Tolkien's taste as far as euphony and phonoaesthetic fitness is concerned. I've since come around to Tolkien's point of view, and I think that Keren Emros and Caras Galathon and the Celebrant and Celeborn and just to name a few things that you can see on this map in front of me here, I think that it sounds lovely now. But anyway, there it is. C always equals the K sound. All right, so, but not so many cities. I mean, again, I'm thinking siege equipment. Like, you're not going to get siege equipment through to Karas Galathon, right? So what are they? What? I don't know. But who knows? They have some Devi's plan in mind, obviously. Okay, orcs are able to construct great weapons of war, weapons capable... Oh, yeah, I already talked about that. Head to Drew Garmath, southeast of here, and set flame to the wood piles you see. Hopefully they will delay them long enough for us to devise a plan to end their destruction once and for all. Wait, don't we want to initiate their destruction? Right? Or do we want to end their destruction in the sense of carry the destruction of them through to its end? Right? That's kind of what we want. Isn't that what we want, Doug Fari? Well, Doug Fari, I will leave you to contemplate the inefficiency of your syntax, and I will move on to your friend Rosquith here. Now, although the K sound occurs all the time in Elvish languages, Tolkien almost never used the K letter in Elvish languages. But it's in the Dwarfish language a lot, as well as in the Black speech. Which is really interesting. And so, by the way, that's one of the things. Have any of you seen that internet quiz that was going around for a while? Somebody sent it to me a while back. The Elvish name or prescription drug quiz. Did you see that? It was really fun, right? Where they would give a word, and you'd have to guess whether it was a prescription drug or one of Tolkien's Elvish names. It was really clever, and many of them I had never really noticed how many prescription drug names sound actually very like Elvish names, which I actually think Tolkien would have been fascinated by, right? Because of course prescription drug names are chosen. In fact, actually, the name for prescription drugs is a fascinating study in terms of phonetic symbolism, right? Because here you have, like, they're trying to invent, they don't just call it a thing, right? But they're trying to come up with a name which conveys something, right? They want, like, whether it's like hope or calm or, but there are lots of, there's lots of different, they're trying to evoke something with the name, and it's a nonsense word, right? It's not a name that, or they'll sort of play on a regular word, like, to use a common drug name, the drug Aleve, right? Which is I've always thought that was a really, really clever name, right? The way that it plays on the English words. But anyway, the one big weakness in the setup of this quiz, this online quiz, which was very clever otherwise, was that obviously the person who wrote it didn't know that there are no J's and no Z's used in Elvish names ever. So it was easy. Like, more than half of them I could guess without even thinking about it, because I'm like, well, if it's got a J or a Z, it's not an Elvish name, obviously, right? And a lot of the prescription drugs use J's, Z's, and X's, right? No X's either in Elvish names. And almost never any, I don't think there are ever any K's. If they need a K, they use the C. He uses the C. So it's interesting, actually, to see the different ways in which Tolkien uses this. Again, the pronunciation guide works for everything, but Tolkien's spelling choices change in presenting even the same sounds, because he wants to give a visual, like, he cares about how the word looks as well as how it sounds. I think how it sounds was primary to him, but he cared about how it looks too. Well, see, though, Erocheb, I can't agree with you there. Elvish languages aren't exactly spelled like Latin. Most of them are based on Welsh. Actually, I mean, it's the phonetic inspiration of the Sindarin language is Welsh, and it's quite striking. I mean, when I went to Wales for the first time, it was really neat. I mean, I didn't know the language at all, and so I'm looking at the street signs in North Wales, and I didn't know what they meant, but I could pronounce them, right? And it was fun. I mean, there are places. I mean, there are some elements of the Elvish of the Welsh language rather, which is quite different. Like Elvish doesn't get into, it's not quite as polysyllabic as Welsh, or like there's some Elvish or some Welsh names that I'm looking at on signs and I'm like, I could not. It would take me 5 minutes to parse and figure out how on earth I'm supposed to pronounce all 8 syllables of that word, right? But so Sindarin not so much like that, but a lot of like the vowel and consonantal combinations and everything. So it was this really kind of eerie feeling being surrounded by this language that I didn't know at all, but which always looked familiar. Like every sign I'd look at, it was like it looked familiar to me, but I didn't know it at all. It was really interesting. It was really funny. Anyway, Rosquith, sorry. Okay, so what are we doing here?
Traveler, will you stay a moment?
A moment. I like that. Sure, yeah, I can do that. Orcs are a trickier lot than I might give them credit for. Yeah, they're cunning. Yet you can't assume orcs are stupid. You're totally right about that. Traveling from Eregion to here in the Dale through the underground of Khazad-dûm can take days. Oh, or sometimes less. Even when you know where you're going, heading through the Redhorn Gate is much faster, especially when you are bringing large and heavy loads. Mazog has dispatched a company of orcs to the fallen ice. Northwest of here, they are attempting to dig through the wrath of Karathras. They cannot be allowed a second path through the mountain. Head up there and interrupt their efforts. I'd heard that there was lately an avalanche up there, but I'm happy to to check it out. Oh, you got another one for me here, Roscoe?
Welcome. You have come at a most fortuitous time.
Good. See, I like that. I like the welcome you have come at a more fortuitous time tag rather than the why can't you even spare me a moment when I am sparing you a moment. Okay. All right. Ever since we left Moria, the goblins and orcs have been pouring out into the Dimril Dale. It has become increasingly difficult to maintain our positions here. The orcs have established 3 primary camps all southeast. Uruk Goshan, you heard of that one. Dru Garmalth, heard of that one. And Athmadhul. Right, exactly. I care not which camps the orcs come from, as long as you can thin out a good... So you just want me to slaughter orcs. I understand. Right. When I've reduced their numbers sufficiently. Always feel guilty accepting those quests, because I... can kill them and they keep coming back. But it's all right. Hey, did I actually acquire all of the quests? Look at that. Now, if that's not accomplishment for what, an hour of streaming or 45 minutes of streaming, I don't know what it is. I got all of the quests. I want to go down to the stone. Let's actually see the local features. Okay. Birches, huh? I have a feeling that might be mentioned. Birch woods. Tolkien was a great describer of plants, of course. Whoa. Sorry. A waylayer? Get stealthy. Here's Uruk-Goshan. Oh, they've been felling trees. Treebeard would not approve, and we're definitely building war machines here. Look, for what I don't know, there's a sapper. There's a Moria sapper, huh? Let's let that skirmisher pass by. What do you say? Keep this between you and me, Mr. Sapper. Haha! Surprised you, didn't I? Okay. Oh, no problem. What did I get? Oh, right, defeat orcs in Dimril Dale. Okay. That's not a surprising Slayer deed, I suppose. Let's re-stealth. Okay, so how many of them do I have to get? 6 sappers? Alright, there's another one. Meanwhile, look at that. So, okay, so first of all, it's an obelisk with a face? It's a weird pointy obelisk. I want to see the front. Of course, that itself is interesting, right? That the front, that it faces out. Because, of course, you'd think if there's a face on one side of it, you'd think that the face would be facing the other way. So when people come, because the audience, right, the spectators of this, and that's really what obelisks are for, right? They're designed for to be seen. Like, this is here to commemorate this thing. So you'd think it would be like as people come down from, Khazad-dûm, they'd see it. But no, it's facing outwards because, of course, what it's commemorating is Durin looking at Mirror. Now, so that's by itself interesting. There he is. Why? What's the point coming out the top of his head? Is what I'm keen to find out. But here's the other thing that interests me: these spiky jobs here, which, by the way, are set so far apart, and an agile little hobbit burglar should totally be able to sneak through there, but that's all right. Let me just off this Moria sapper here while we're at it. So anyway, I'm interested by these these fortifications, because they clearly are fortifications, right? Not just but you see what this suggests, right? This suggests that the orcs who have taken up their camp here are expecting attack. Notice how they come down here to the side so that nobody can come and attack over here from this side. What all this shows, what I mean, of course, is that this shows that the orcs are themselves perfectly well aware of the cultural significance of this spot. They're doing this on purpose. They're not just like, hey, look, here's stone. Me take useful stone to use in destructive and malicious things. That's not the thing, right? They know the significance of this to the dwarves. Are they even baiting the dwarves on purpose? Of course, one of the things that I couldn't help but think while the dwarf who gave me this quest was talking, right, and giving me the quest was, why on earth are they only starting now? I mean, the orcs have controlled this place for hundreds of years, right? Why is it only just lately coming to their heads to be like, hey, I know, we should destroy the monument, right? Why would they start now? Well, one reason they would start now would be because they know the dwarves are there. Maybe they're trying to draw the dwarves out and are hoping the dwarves are going to assault this place in order to protect and it's a trap, right? Anyway, the fortifications around there do suggest that they really are planning on attack. Can I draw him over here? Let's see. Well, his buddy's coming. Oh, yeah? Oh, seriously? You're going to throw stuff at me? I didn't know you had ranged attack. Come around the corner. You're not going to chase me? You coward. There you are. Fine. Yeah, let's do this then. But see, look at me remembering that I'm not a guardian and just charging into the middle and taking on all three of them at once. Which is what I'm accustomed to doing. Okay. Oh, this is a fascinating little piece of work. This is, of course, a larger version of those little totems that the defilers are always making. So we have the skull of some creature. I'm looking at the teeth. This is meant to be sharp, like carnivorous teeth. Yeah, they look like it. But it also looks like... Oh, okay. That's a piece of wood. I thought I thought those were molars. Possibly not. Who knows? Okay, so we've got skulls hanging from ropes. These curly things. And then what's around the bottom? Nothing. It's just rough hewn around the bottom and carved out. So this is all carved out of one tree. Is this a growing tree, or was this a growing tree? I think it was. So this is a tree which is still rooted to the ground, right? Am I understanding that properly? Which they then, so they've not made this out of a log and stood it up here. They've taken a tree and shaved the rest of the tree away. They've like whittled it down or something. and then they just like nail these branches right onto here, and then on the top they put this really attractive goblin head, right? Which appears to be soaked in blood, so it was probably made of wood too. And then it's plastered with blood. You can see the blood dripping down the post. And I think that's a goblin. So this is not a Sauron thing, right? This is not a Sauron shrine, as we've seen before, you know, Sauron of the many swords, those shrines that we've set fire to in so many different places around in Middle-earth. But are the skulls then therefore meant to be like, you know, like the skulls that are hanging down from under the head of the goblin, like the in a hole, like these are the skulls of our enemies, kind of thing. This too, you know, you'll be next, kind of deal. All right. Yeah, JJ48 was asking about the spiky things and saying that they do look rather odd. I mean, okay, what's really odd about it to me is that it looks like they're designed. You know what this would be really effective for, right? These kinds of defenses would be really effective to prevent a cavalry charge from coming up the hill and sweeping them away. But you'd think he wouldn't be in much danger of that from dwarves, right? I mean, even if they brought their goats, presumably they would not be able to do that. I should totally be able to duck my head and walk under those. I feel aggrieved. I really want to get a closer look at the relief carvings on the stone. I'm forgetting. Okay, how many sappers have I killed? 4. Oh, here comes another one. Oh, sorry. Hi, excuse me. Yeah, thanks. Excuse me, I'll be ambushing you today. Uh-oh. Dude with a name. Istash, huh? Is there writing? There is writing on here. I can't make it out. Oh no, there's actually writing. There's an actual inscription that I would be able to read. But I'm not sure my graphics are probably set too low. Curse it! I'll come back again if I can. Because, yeah, those are dwarf runes. Which, of course, stands to reason. Doubly. I mean, not only like, yeah, Brainiac, of course, they're dwarf runes. It's a dwarf monument, right? But it's not just that. The reason dwarf runes are the way that they are is they're designed for carving on metal and stone. That's why they have no curves, right? Curves are hard to carve onto metal and stone. Straight lines are much easier. So that's why there's none. No curves in any dwarf runes. Oops. Sorry, I keep doing that. Oh, you found me, huh? Okay, you know, actually killing you is pretty easy. Did I get all the sappers? I did get all the sappers. Okay. Well, let me go back to that guy, actually, because he might give me another quest for this camp. And I've been extremely leisurely today. You know, I think I figured it out. I was kind of, as I was spending all that time back in the camp talking, I was kind of peripherally aware of the fact that I was taking a very unusual, like, being especially luxurious. Like, let's think about the spelling and pronunciation of every single character's name, and I realized why. And I've now realized why I was doing that. I hadn't really planned that, but the reason I was doing that, I'm sure now, is because I'm sort of reacting against all the marathoning I've been doing, right? I've been in such a hurry, especially with Grifflet, I've been in such a hurry to get to the end, right? I was trying to get through Moria in one day, which was awesome, and that was really fun. But of course, the downside is that it makes me all rushing, and I didn't get a chance to stop and look around nearly so much as I often do. So I think I'm just like asserting my leisureliness, right? No more schedule, no more rush, no more deadlines. Right now I can just take my time, and I've been I think enjoying that. Hey, look at that dude wearing the hooded cloak of many worlds. All right, Halfleith. The orc sappers have been stopped, and the stone is safe for now. This lightens my heart, but there is more to do. We have not yet ensured Durin's stone will remain for the generations yet to come. Okay, right, that was phase 1. I thought it might be.
Will you help me?
Of course. You fear I was too late? What, is it coming down? Okay, although Durin's stone has been saved, severe damage has been done. While they were preparing to destroy the stone, they chipped off many pieces. It has been defaced and made the fool. Have they made a fool of the rock? Wow. Okay. All right. Sorry. That's a really interesting personification. I've never heard of anybody making a fool out of an obelisk before, but I like it. That's kind of witty, Halfleith. That's cool. But anyway, sorry. What were you doing? Where were we talking about? Okay. Right. There's one course of action. We must reclaim it. Well, okay. Right. I figured. Head south again, back to Urakashan, and search for the broken off bits and pieces. Gather up what you find and bring the pieces back here. All right. So we'll salvage the pieces and then you'll put them back together. All right. So yeah, just repairing it with new stone will never do. Right. We need to recover the original. Excuse me. Sorry. Didn't mean to run right under the legs of your bog guardian. But anyway, yeah. So we got to reclaim the original pieces so that we can do that. All right. That's cool. Hey, my legendary item leveled up, didn't it? Yes, I believe it did. What do we want? Some feint attack damage. Yeah. Some subtle stab damage. Why not? Looking good. All right. Okay, so we need to find some pieces of statue. Well, not statue. Obelisk, really. Monument. And when I got to the other side, I forgot to look up at the face. Because I still need to know. All right, I get the fact that it's... Oh, look, there it is. Can I say, by the way... We've talked before, and the LOTRO guys openly acknowledge the fact that the primary place where they merely demand suspension of disbelief from their players is when they are traveling, right? The travel speeds of the world and stuff, which is totally true. But I have to admit that the parts that I find more comical are these, when you have to pick up not only one but 12 or something, just enormous. So this stone, right, this rock, there is no way that a hobbit of my size could even budge that thing. He couldn't even roll it over, right? And yet he's meant to not only pick it up and carry it with him, but this and 5 other pieces like it. Just that picture of Grifflet with his inventory, right? Grifflet staggering under the weight of 6 boulders of that size. It's kind of funny, right? I always get a kick out of that when that happens. All right, here's another piece of Durin's stone. I'll get that. But anyway, so I get that this is it's commemorating Durin still looking in, and I'm trying to see see if I understand what the carving is here in the front. That his face would be having his back to Khazad Dûm and his back to anyone actually looking at the obelisk. Seems weird at first, but it makes sense. If I've got to see this from the water, I will. But anyways, I'm thinking this is beard here, and that's nose, right? So that's the schnoz of Durin there. But what's the pointy bit sticking out of the top of his head? I can't imagine. They're sort of suggesting that Durin the Deathless had a incredibly pronounced cone head. That's probably not what they're saying. So I really am trying to figure that out. Are they going to notice me? Nope. I'm being all burglarious, right? A truly legendary burglar would be able to walk into and out of an orc camp carrying half a dozen boulders with as few as possible of the orcs even noticing. That one's going to be a little trickier. If I can come way back behind the tent, right? Shh. Okay. Why am I crouching but not... Oh, did I double click it? And I'll stand by their little totem thing. JJ48 says he doesn't even think Charmandy could fit it into his inventory. So true. Yeah, I'm still working with Charmandy on his inventory. Well, it's hard. I remember the first time I played, especially when I was getting, drops from the, mob drops and things. And I was like the trophies and things. I was like, what are these for? Maybe I'll need them, right? That's always my first question. Like, maybe I'll need it later. All right, I think I've got to strategically kill that guy again. Darn it. Sorry, I keep doing that. Let's draw him over here. Come here. You ran around the other side of the tent? Okay, that was kind of a strange route, but that's all right. All right, now I should be able to sneak in without that guy noticing. Boom, and out we go. Excellent. Very burglarious Grifflet. Well done. Yeah, JJ, that was it. You just never knew what might come in handy later on. And I always... This is why in every game I've ever played, my inventory... I don't know how many games I have completed with, my inventory just absolutely chock full of potions that I'm saving for a rainy day. Because, it never rains hard enough for me to actually use them. So I always keep them just in case I need them. That's totally my MO. When it comes to gaming, and it looks like the apple's not fallen far from the tree on that point. I have shown him the task board, by the way, and how to use them for tasks. So we've been getting there. But now that we got him using his vault, he should be doing a little bit better.
What do you need?
It's as I feared. You did in fact prove able to bring 6 boulders back with you. The damage is done already. Yep. Perhaps these fragments will rejoin the rest. Yeah, you can just put them back. It'll be good. You'll keep them here safe. What, like in your pouch?
Come and stay a moment.
Okay. I've done everything that asked your... Okay, I got to defeat the named guy. All right. You will die before you see him succeed in tearing down what remains. Okay, this must end here and now. All right, we're going to do this. I totally agree. Return south to Uruk-Gashan and defeat Istash. Durin's stone will never be safe so long as that foul orc still walks among the living. All right. Let's go do this. Yeah. You and your bug guardian are still there. Probably considering the pronunciation of the names, right? I totally understand how that could happen. Yeah, good. All right. Okay. Let's go in along the shoreline. Let's do another burglarious maneuver here. Go straight in. We saw him prowling down here. And then after he's dead, or even before he's dead, let's go over on the other side of these obstacles. Let's look up at this face of the obelisk. Yep. Once again, same profile from the other side. I think we're going to have to take a swim. We'll do that. But first, let's go stalk Istash over here. Whoa. Hey. Who invited that sapper to join this party? Not me. Okay. All right, I'll be stunning you today. That's good. That was surprisingly easy, Istash. It really was. Okay. Now, I know I probably shouldn't be swimming in Khaladzaram. Grifflet should not be doing the backstroke in the mirror. But, oh! It's a long braided... Oh, that's adorable! He looks like a garden gnome! I mean that as a compliment in that I find it really cute. But that's funny. He's got a pointed hat? No. Seriously? Would you just look at that? That is the cutest little Durin I've ever seen. I mean, it's not little, it's enormous. So that was a braided beard. I wouldn't have guessed that. But of course, he's a long beard. So you want to show Durin with a particularly long beard, right? Braided but not forked. And remembering, like, when we were closer in, I mean, you remember the size of his nose, right? It was enormous. So, and so that's just like his face. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. But see, Erecheb, I'm thinking Gimli would not approve of me coming out here and swimming in Khaladzaram, but at the same time, you literally can't see it if you don't do that. I mean, again, they make the statue of Durin, or the obelisk, which has Durin's face on it, commemorating the looking of Durin into Mirror, so resolutely facing the Mirror that you can't even see it without being out here in the Mirror. What's this action over here? So it's not a statue, right? So I'm tempted to say, okay, it kind of looks like he's folding his arms like this, right, under his beard, right? But those aren't arms. It's not a statue anyway. It's an obelisk, right? So it's an obelisk with a face. Does he have a pointy hat? Maybe it's not a pointed hat. Maybe if we just kind of... So I'm trying to picture this without the dwarf in it, right? Would it just naturally come to that point? So it's like a pointed obelisk with like a dwarf sticking out around it, rather than an obelisk dwarf with a pointy hat on top? Because see, this looks... Oh, no. Okay, I thought this was a crown. You see this part up here? I thought this was a crown on his head, but that's not a crown. It's better. Those are his eyebrows. Right? The statue of Durin has awesome eyebrows that go swoosh up, cover his forehead. I mean, look at that gap in the middle, right? So no monobrow for him, but look at that. No Durin unibrow. Distinct gap in between, but the gap in between really serves to set off how enormous and sweeping the eyebrows of the Durin statue is. Oh man, this is really something. That is the most unusual character, and he doesn't have a left eye, but that I think is a coincidence. That's probably just the product of erosion or something, right? The no precedent for Durin with an eye patch that I recall. Thrain lost an eye, right? Thorin's dad, but not Durin, so far as I know. Well, yeah, there we go. Father of the Longbeards. That is really neat. Can we? Let's swim off to the side, shall we? Let's do the side stroke here. Kind of pan around. I don't understand what these swooshy things are. I mean, everything else I'm convinced now is facial hair, right? We've got nose, little kind of pouty mouth in there, right? Eyes, or at least one eye and one missing eyeball. Now, JJ48 is suggesting maybe this implies that Spalvi is in fact Durin returned. Maybe, but I don't get this. The rest of its hair, that could this be his head, like the hair from the back of his head? Oh, maybe it is. Maybe that's what that is. Maybe that's his. Maybe he's got swooshy hair coming down around from the back, right? I mean, this hair is obviously beard here, right? That's his cheek hair there, coming down like these two huge mutton chops over on the side. Maybe that's supposed to be his head hair coming around. Because why would he be wearing a garment when he doesn't even have a body or arms or anything like that? This is clearly just an obelisk with a face on it, because the face is the important thing. And if you're a dwarf, and what's more, a long beard, the important thing about the face is the hair, right? So, yeah, I think it's got to be head hair. It does. It has a similar kind of pattern as the cheek hair does. Yeah. It is the very, very hirsute Durin here. Absolutely. Oh, that's really awesome. And yeah, I don't think it's a pointy hat. It does look better from the front because it's at least like consistent with the idea of pointy hat. But I still kind of, well, all right. I was gonna say I thought that was a mistake, but if you think about it, right, if you kind of imagine cutting this off, it would look even funnier. It would look like a dwarf Pez dispenser is what it would look like. It would look like a gigantic stone Durin Pez dispenser is what it would look like. So maybe the pointy top of the obelisk is, maybe that makes sense. All right. That was awesome. And by the way, JJ referred to Spalvi. We just had bingo night on Tuesday night in Mythgard Kinship with the Mythgard Adventures, which are open to everybody, by the way, not just the Kinship. So if you ever want to join us for Mythgard Adventures, we do. We meet every other week on Tuesday nights at 9:30 Eastern Time. We meet at the Mythgard Kin House, which you can get directions to if you ask. Fairvenin is here; she can give you directions. Maven can give you directions. Anyway, so every other time we do. We've been doing the Bingo Boffin quest chain. We started at the beginning and we're all the way up to. We just got into Moria. Finally, we just found the Amnesiac Bingo last time, so that was cool. That's where we ended, and then on the opposite times we did skirmishes for a long time. Skirmishes with Pineleaf, who I know was here at the beginning. I don't know if he's still here. We had Pineleaf's expert guidance through all of the skirmishes, which was awesome. But then we finished all the skirmishes. We did all the skirmishes, and we got to the end of the skirmishes, and we just decided to do some instances then. So we've been doing the In Their Absence quest chain, which is really neat, and we're going to be doing the last one Tuesday week. So a week from this coming Tuesday. Here's Kiriana up here, like hoping I was going to throw myself into mortal peril today. She as vigilant as ever and hoping to keep me alive if I need help. But I was way too much for those orcs to handle all by myself. And also I found that pronunciation practice turned out to not be very perilous, actually.
Well met.
Istas has fallen. Yeah, and I saw the Durin statue, which was so adorable. I just love it. I love what they did with his cheek hair. But I was going somewhere with that, about Spalvey. Don't let me forget to talk about Spalvey and the Dour Hands. Because I just made a discovery, not a discovery exactly, kind of a discovery. I figured out where I figured out where Tolkien got the name Dour Hand from. Actually, I'll come back to that. Hang on. Okay. Right, Istash has fallen, Durin's stone still stands, and my heart weeps with joy. We dwarves are not an emotional people, as I am sure you have found in your ventures, but the destruction of Durin's stone would have made any dwarf sob. Oh, come on, Gimli got all choked up on several occasions. Dwarves just, they put up a good front, but they're softies about some things. You have the thanks of all dwarves, and I am proud to call you my friend. Durin's stone will continue to stand for many generations to come and serve as a place where all dwarves can come and remember who we are and why we are here. All dwarves have you to thank for that. We are at your service. You are welcome. Haflith. What do we have here? Legacy reminder, huh? Might and agility, not all that useful. I mean, agility is useful, but a might-based thing. Less interested. Okay. All right. Spalvey. So yeah, we just did we started bingo night on Tuesday. We started with a quest where Spalvey gets a new name. And then we went to, we then got to the point, as I said, where we finally found bingo again. But, Dour, of course, he changed his name, right? He was one of the Dour Hands, and he changed his name from Dour Hand to Stoutheart. Wasn't that the name that he ended up choosing? And he's probably going to change it again soon. Now, I said I figured out where Tolkien got the word Dour Hand from. Now, of course, the Dour Hand is not a name of dwarves in Tolkien's world. That was made up by the LOTRO people. The Longbeards are the only clan of dwarves whose name we know. We know of the existence of 6 other clans of dwarves, but we never know the names of any of them or of where they are from. And if you say, but wait a second, didn't we know the dwarves in the Silmarillion, and aren't they from different clans? Yeah, that's retrofitting, though. Originally, those were Longbeards. The Longbeards are like the original dwarves that in Tolkien's envisioning of dwarves. Yeah, so, okay. So anyway, the LOTRO folks, right? The Turbine people needed to come up with a name to have this other enemy dwarf clan, which is, of course, so prominent in the plot, especially in the earlier sections. And so they came up with the Dour Hands as sort of to correspond to the Longbeards. And although that's not a dwarf clan name from Tolkien, it is in fact a phrase used by Tolkien in a completely different context. In fact, it's part of the elegy after the Battle of Pelennor Field. If I'm remembering correctly, and those of you who might remember more accurately can correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it Halbarad himself who is called a dour-handed ranger? It's one of the rangers, and I think it's Halbarad, because Halbarad dies in the Battle of Pelennor Field, of course. And I'm pretty sure he's the one who's called dour-handed. Dour-handed ranger. I came across where Tolkien got that, actually. And that was it's from King Arthur. I'm rereading. So I kind of am in a constant state of rereading Tolkien, and I'm rereading The Fall of Arthur this week, and I came across, he uses the phrase dour-handed in The Fall of Arthur to describe Agravain, the brother of the nasty jerk brother of Sir Gawain, the one who's affiliated with Mordred. He's one of the most awful. Agravain is one of the most awful knights of the Round Table, and he's and Tolkien calls him dour-handed. And of course, then I was reminded by Christopher Tolkien in his notes on it's in Canto 3, I think, of The Fall of Arthur. In his notes to Canto 3, he was reminding me that Agravain the Dour-Handed is just Tolkien translating the title, the sort of cognomen that Agravain is given by Sir Thomas Malory in Le Morte d'Arthur, which of course, as I recall, is Agravain à la Dourmen, which is just French, which means hard-handed, right? So dur, D-U-R-E, in the sort of Anglo-Norman spelling that Malory is still using there. So it's Agravain of the hard hand. He's hard-handed, which is a compliment, right? Being hard-handed is a good thing. And that is doubtless what Tolkien meant when he called Halbarad, if I'm getting that correct, he calls him a dour-handed ranger. He is hard-handed. That's a compliment, certainly, of a warrior, right? But anyway, what are you guys yelling at me for spoiler alerts of the book? Look, if you're playing the game and you haven't read the books, like, shame on you. Go read the books. I'm not gonna like if you're playing LOTRO, I'm assuming you've read the books, right? So I'm not gonna worry about giving away what happens at the end. Like, the ring gets destroyed. It totally does, right? I'm just saying, it does. Right. I mean, so seriously, like, come on now. You can't expect me to like be all like spoiler shy about, these books that were published going on 75 years ago. Anyway, okay. So dour-handed means hard-handed, which is a compliment. But I found it really interesting that, of course, that phrase dour-handed is used in The Fall of Arthur of Agravain, translating from Malory, which is cool because, of course, that is this. It's like it's a coincidence. I'm not saying there's any cause or effect here, but I was just fascinated to see that dour-handed, Tolkien took that phrase from Agravain, because Agravain came first. He wrote The Fall of Arthur in the 30s, and he wrote The Lord of the Rings, obviously, in the 40s, or late 30s and 40s. So Agravain came first. So dour-handed starts off as the adjective describing Agravain, translating from the Anglo-Norman. And then, but then it comes to be the epithet used for Halbarad in the elegy. So Tolkien takes it. It was a description of a very bad guy, right, and makes it into a good guy thing. And then the Turbine folks come along and they take that same adjective or epithet and they turn it into a bad guy thing again, right? And they make it into the traitor, not just evil dwarves, right, but traitor dwarves, the dwarves who turn on their cousins. And that's exactly what Agravain does. He turns on his brother and he turns on Arthur, and most pointedly, he turns on Lancelot. But he is the cause of, ultimately it's Agravain who is the one who causes the schism and the fall in the Round Table. It's a big deal. Again, he's awful. He's Mordred, of course, is the chief villain, but in some ways, Agravain is kind of worse. At least I've always found. It was his active work that brings about the problem that Mordred just kind of, finishes up. Anyway, so I thought that was really fascinating. Just kind of thinking, because of course I couldn't help but think of the Dour Hands in game, and the way that epithet kind of came full circle from the description of a really bad guy to a description of a good guy, and then through Turbine's intervention back to description of schismatic traitors in the game. Again, I'm not saying that I necessarily think that that's what they were planning and what they had in mind, but I do think, but I do think it's pretty cool. Anyway, all right. I should go. I believe my children need fetching from school. Yes, indeed they do. I'm late. So I do have to go now. Thanks everybody for joining me. It's not been the most action-packed, but sorry, I was a little lectury today. I hope that's all right. We'll carry on getting Grifflet some experience, working up towards almost halfway up to level 57 now. We'll keep doing some good work here in the Nanduhirian, and we'll get down to Lothlorien next time, I think. All right, very good. Excellent. Thanks very much, everybody. And I will see you guys. Well, I'll see you guys next. Oh, yeah. Quick announcement. Don't forget, big goings on. Tomorrow is the webathon, the fall campaign ending webathon. And there's going to be a special Grifflet session tomorrow. So I say, Grifflet, we'll get to Lothlorien next time. Grifflet will get to Lothlorien tomorrow, actually. He's going to come back and perhaps meet some special guests and friends there. I have heard that I've heard rumor. I honestly do not know myself exactly what is going to happen. But I'm expecting to meet some friends and be taken to some interesting places, and I think there might be some cosmetic goings on. I've heard rumors about. It should be fun. So look for me tomorrow there. Make sure that you subscribe to the Signum University stream. So Signum U. Because I often will be streaming there with Wigand and with Son of Wigand, my co-streams with my 8-year-old son Matthias and his guardian Charmandy in his characteristic crossing of fan streams. Anyway, anyway, it's going to be great. It's going to be a whole day, not just the 2-hour session that I have scheduled for Grifflet is from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. But that's only one subset of a 10-hour day that we're doing. We're doing a whole bunch of special sessions. There's going to be a special lecture on Tolkien and alchemy, a special discussion of Tolkien and fairy tale traditions in some of his early poetry, looking at the thesis work of one of our Signum thesis students, one of our first graduates who's now getting her PhD. And I'm going to be doing a special session on Netflix's series Stranger Things. If you've seen Stranger Things and want to hear me talk about that, I'm going to be participating in like a 2-hour discussion on Stranger Things. We're gonna do all kinds of different things. I'm doing special film stuff for our Silmarillion film project that I've been working on our podcast. LOTRO Maven will be there with me tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about our script, our frame, a very relevant Lothlorien thing. We're going to be talking about the frame of season 2 of the Silmarillion film project. It starts at 7 p.m. It's going to be really neat. So I hope that you can join me tomorrow. I'm sure that Maven or Fairvenin can put a link to the webathon page, which gives all the links for all of and the schedule for the full day. They can put that in the chat for you. And for those of you who are listening live, go to Signum University, or listening not live, go to signumuniversity.org. Click on the donate button on the far right, the donate menu, I should say, on the far right, and you'll see the campaign events stuff, which has the whole page for the events for the day, or for the campaign, of which the webathon is now the last one. Jesse was asking where it's gonna, or no, Druid's Fire was asking where it's gonna be. I had been originally thinking of doing it on Signum U. I don't know if they can try to talk me into doing it on LOTRO Stream or not, and I might do it on LOTRO Stream and host it on Signum U as well. But yeah, I'm still kind of actually going back and forth on that one, Druid's Fire. But anyhow, we'll be in both places anyway, so it'll all be good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining me, and I will hope to see many of you tomorrow and next week in any case. So thanks very much. Bye now.